This is the reason I left my wedding hall. Those words still taste strange on my tongue, as if they don't quite belong to me, yet they carry the weight of everything I've been holding back. People think walking away from a wedding is an act of shame, of fear, of hesitation, but for me, it was the only way to brave. The lights, the music, the eyes of hundreds of people of it pressed against my chest until I could no longer hear my own heart. I felt like a stranger standing in clothes that were mine, promising a future that wasn't written for me. So I left. Not because I was weak, but because for the first time in my life, I chose myself. I remember the way the silence followed me as I walked out. The hall was filled with laughter, celebration, and the endless noise of expectations, but inside me there was only one voice. A voice that whispered, "This is love. This isn't your story. This is where your soul belongs." And in that moment, I realized that staying would mean betraying myself. It would mean silencing every dream, every truth I had ever carried. The courage it took to walk away wasn't born in a single second. It was the result of years of watching others break under the weight of living for appearances, of surrendering to what the world demanded instead of what their heart needed. I could do that. Not to myself, not to the life I was meant to live. When I left the hall, I wasn't just leaving a wedding. I was leaving behind the image of perfection everyone had painted for me. I was leaving behind the applause, the rituals, and the polished smiles that hid silent compromises. I was leaving behind a future that looked flawless from the outside, but was hollow at its core. What people don't understand is that sometimes, walking away isn't running, it's fighting. It's a rebellion against a life that cages you with golden bars and calls it happiness. And yes, I know what people said. They called me selfish, reckless, ungrateful. They wondered how I could shame my family, embarrass them in front of the world. But none of them saw the truth. None of them felt how my hands trembled under the heavy jewelry, how my chest tightened with every vow I was expected to repeat, how my eyes searched the crowd for something, anything that felt like freedom, and found nothing. To them, it was a fairy tale evening. To me, it was a prison. And I could lock myself inside it just to make everyone else comfortable. Now, when I think back, I don't regret it. The whispers, the judgment, the endless questions, they don't scare me anymore. Because for the first time, I know I am walking towards something real, even if I don't fully know what that is yet. The world may see me as the one who left, the one who walked out. But I see myself as someone who finally listened to the beating of her own heart. And maybe that's what life is about, not choosing the path everyone approves of, but the one that lets you wake up every morning knowing you are truly alive. I never thought I would ever say these words out loud, but the truth cannot be hidden forever. That night, when I walked away from the glittering lights, from the music, from the carefully decorated stage that was supposed to mark the beginning of my new life, I knew I was breaking not just one heart, but many. Yet, how could I stay when my own heart refused to belong there? How could I bow to a life built on compromise when deep inside me, love was already burning for someone else, the prince who had stolen my soul long before this wedding was ever arranged? The moment I stepped out of the hall, everything turned chaotic. Gasps filled the air, whispers ran wild through the crowd. My family's faces were painted with disbelief and shame. My father's eyes carried a storm anger laced with betrayal, as though I had destroyed the honor of generations with a single decision. My mother tried to hide her tears behind her dupatta, unable to understand why her daughter would leave the dream every parent wishes for. Relatives rushed around, some in shock, some in fury, some murmuring curses under their breath. And yet, amidst all that noise, there was only one truth that mattered: he could not marry someone I did love. What they didn't see was the real reason. They didn't see the way my heart beat louder every time the prince entered the room. They didn't see the way his eyes searched for me in a sea of faces, how he never said the words, but carried them in every glance. They didn't know that I was suffocating inside a story that wasn't mine, while my soul had already chosen him. It wasn't just a reckless decision, it was love. Pure, undeniable love. And for that love, I left everything behind. My family could believe it. My father called it betrayal, my mother called it menace. "You've destroyed us," they said, their voices heavy with disappointment. But in my silence, I wanted to tell them that love cannot be destroyed, that forcing me into a marriage would have broken me far worse than their anger ever could. The prince was not just a man to me, he was my truth, my beginning, my only. And no wedding, no tradition, no pressure could silence the truth. I know the world will remember me as the bride who ran away, the daughter who disobeyed, the girl who brought shame upon her family. But what they won't understand is that I did run away from marriage, I ran toward love. Toward a man who saw me not as an obligation, but as his heartbeat. And if that makes me guilty, then I will carry that guilt forever, because nothing compares to the courage it takes to love someone enough to risk everything. Those were the first words I whispered to her when I finally saw her standing there, away from all the chaos, away from the glitter and the noise. My heart was still racing, my hands still trembling from the weight of what I had just done, but in that moment, when my eyes met hers, everything made sense. I had left a hall full of expectations, a hall filled with hundreds of eyes waiting for me to follow the path they had chosen for me, but I walked out because none of it mattered if she wasn't standing beside me. I stepped closer, and she looked at me with disbelief, her lips parted as if she couldn't form the words her heart was screaming. I could see the storm inside her, fear, confusion, love, all tangled together. I cupped her face in my hands, and said softly, "I don't care what the world thinks. I don't care what my father says, or how my family reacts. I only care about you. You're the reason I couldn't go through with it. You're the reason my steps turned away from that stage. My heart refuses to belong to anyone else when it has always belonged to you." Her eyes filled with tears, and I felt my chest tighten. For so long, I had hidden this fire, buried it beneath duty, beneath the heavy weight of being a prince, a son, a name that carried centuries of expectations. But love doesn't bend to crowns or traditions. Love does wait patiently while life makes decisions for you. It demands courage, and tonight, I finally found mine. "You're not just a girl to me," I continued, my voice breaking. "You're the reason I breathe differently, the reason my nights feel longer, the reason every prayer of mine has only one name in it, yours." She tried to speak, but her voice trembled. I silenced her with a touch, my thumb brushing away her tears. Let them say I betrayed them. Let them call me reckless. None of their words can change the truth. I love you and I chose you. I would rather be a disgraced son than a man who betrayed his own heart. You are not my weakness, you are the strength that gave me the courage to walk out of the hall tonight. I leaned closer, my forehead resting against hers, and whispered, "I don't promise you a life free of struggles, because what we've done will not be easy. But I promise you a life where you'll never doubt my love. I promise you a heart that beats only for you, a man who will fight the whole world if he has to, just to keep you by his side." This is the reason I left my wedding hall. Because no crown, no family name, no obligation could ever mean more to me than you. Her silence in that moment said more than any words could. The way her eyes widened, the way her breath trembled, it was as if she couldn't believe I had chosen her over a throne, over a crown, over a lifetime of duty. And maybe that's why I kept speaking, because I wanted her to understand, truly understand, that my choice wasn't made in haste. It wasn't rebellion for the sake of rebellion. It was love, raw and unshaken, and I couldn't let her doubt it for even a heartbeat. Inside me, the storm of my family's reaction was still raging. I could almost hear my father's voice echoing in my head the disappointment, the anger, the questions that would follow. How could you walk away from your duty? He would demand. My mother's tears would flow. My brothers would call me foolish. The court would whisper about dishonor. And yet, not one of those imagined scenes could break the calm I felt now, standing before her. It was strange. I had always thought disobeying my family would shatter me. But instead, it freed me. I watched her hands tremble, and I reached for them, wrapping them in mine. I don't regret it, I told her softly. Even if they never forgive me, even if they cast me out of their world, I will never regret choosing you. Because when I looked at that stage, when I looked at the girl waiting for me at the end of that aisle, my soul screamed your name. And in that moment, I knew I couldn't live a single day as a liar. I couldn't stand before a crowd and bind myself to someone else, knowing my heart already belonged to you. I thought of the nights I spent convincing myself that sacrifice was noble, that my love for her was something I could bury in